Chapter 5. As Hannah rode to Jovani's apartment, another young woman went missing as Detective Mallory McLeod sat down to dinner. She ate a Reuben sandwich from a local deli, drank a bottle of beer, and poured out of a can her cat's dinner. She fired up her computer and took out a folder from her bag and looked through the pictures of missing women. The women were all the same age. Somewhere between 18 and 22, from different backgrounds, rich, poor, middle class, but they had a few things in common. They were young, no boyfriends or friends, and some didn't have families, and they traveled at night alone on the subway or walked or jogged around their neighborhoods. The West Side, East Side, Bowery, on and on. Bodies were piling up, and Detective McLeod was sure there were some that were never found. As she thumbed through the photos and bit off a small piece of her sandwich, she washed it down with a Heineken. She noticed something different about the killings. They couldn't be all killed by the same person. The times were too close together, and the distance where they were found didn't add up. Some in parks across town, on a jogging path, in an alley almost at the same time. "That's impossible," she murmured. Turning to her cat, "We have more than one killer, Lucky. You should know. You only kill in your territory. This apartment is free of mice, and the alley is free of rats. This is your killing ground. You don't move far from that." Then her phone went off. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. See, Lucky. I was right. I have to go. Don't wait up for me. This time a male." She rubbed the large tabby on his back and readied herself for a long night. When the homicide detectives reached the crime scene, Hannah was stepping out of the limo, and as she looked around at the underground garage, she marveled at the cars parked. It was filled with some of the most expensive cars anyone could buy, and someone could never drive. They were obviously bought as a hobby and to admire. Like you would a fine painting on a wall or a bottle of rare wine placed in a dark cellar. When the door to the elevator opened, Hannah stood looking at the tall, handsome Jovani Nightingale smiling and holding out his hand. She felt relief at the sight of him. He wore a black silk and wool sweater with a pair of jeans. His face appeared much younger in the light. "Come in, Hannah. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to pick you up, but I had business to attend to." They stared at each other for a few more seconds. Hannah smiled, and Jovani had never seen a smile like hers. So innocent and so trusting. She placed her hand inside his and stepped inside. He held her close to him. She gazed up, studying his face. Hannah's glance settled on his blue eyes. They were dark yet compelling and magnetic, pulling her into him. She dropped her head, hoping he didn't see how much she enjoyed being near him. The elevator zoomed up to the very top and then eased to a stop. "Are you okay? I know this lift is quite fast." "Are you English? I know they refer to elevators as lifts." "No, but I lived in England for a few years." He couldn't help thinking about his time in England and how it was there he met Sasha. Then he focused on Hannah. She made him feel alive, and he didn't want to relive something that gave him pain and would ruin his night with Hannah. The door opened, and Hannah strode with Jovani at her side into what she thought of as a palace. Or it could have been. She had never seen such luxury and eclectic furniture. As if someone had bought furniture from all over the world and decided that this apartment was the place to put the museum pieces in. She stared at the paintings and said, "These are lovely. Where did you get these paintings?" "That is the Dutch painter Van Gogh." He completed her sentence. "Come, you must be hungry. My cook planned something special for you." "I don't eat much. A salad would be nice." "Is that all? I thought you would want something special. Lobster or steak?" He looked at Hannah and then showed her to the large pale white sofa. "I know you're teasing me because Justin said I like pancakes and a steak, but I don't really. If you aren't going to eat, at least have a drink of wine and these sandwiches." The cook prepared different things in hopes that you would eat something. "You have to at least taste it so I can tell her how much you enjoyed it," Jovani said, extending his hand to show Hannah the buffet table containing platters of food. But I can't eat all of this. I don't expect you to. My driver and my staff will take them home. I can assure you the food will not be wasted, Jovani said with a grin. See, that was easy. He watched Hannah with amusement as she chose a small sandwich and took a bite of it. When my cook returns in the morning, I can in good conscience tell her how much you enjoyed the finger sandwiches and cakes. Hannah reached for another sandwich as Jovani placed a crystal goblet in front of her and poured the wine. These are really good, she said, smiling at Jovani. See, it wasn't a waste after all. Jovani walked over and sat near Hannah on the large sofa facing the terrace. What is it that you want out of life? To graduate from college and maybe get a good paying job, and to get married one day and live in a nice house. Maybe one like this. Heavens no. I wouldn't know where to begin. I wasn't born with money, and I don't know anything about taking care of a house this large. You could learn. His voice low and sensual as he gazed into her eyes. Hannah lowered her gaze. He made her nervous. It wasn't anything he did or said she felt uncomfortable with him, not like before. Before he was a dream, and now that dream was staring at her with the most erotic look in his eyes and proposing something to her that she didn't quite understand. Raising her eyes to meet his, she said, "It's a dream and I don't like to dream about things I can't have. Did you think you would be sitting in this place with me? I thought when we first met, it would be the last time I would see you, but when you're determined to get the things you dream about, you go after them. You can't wait for them to come to you. You have to reach out and take them." Hannah confused at what exactly he meant. She had never reached out and took anything. She just thought what will be will be. If she was meant to be with someone, it would happen. But didn't that just happen to her? Didn't she just meet by accident the man of her dreams in the most unlikely place? It was fortuitous meeting him the way she did, and fortuitous that she would accept his invitation to dinner. I would never dream of living in a place like this because it will never happen. What are the probabilities of that occurring? Or me meeting you in that alley, Jovani said. She stopped talking and looked straight at him. What were you doing there anyway? She slanted her head to the side, trying to understand why he would happen by at that time. Rescuing you. I heard you scream. But no one else heard me. How could that be? She raised her thumbnail to her mouth and then jerked her hand down in her lap. She had a bad habit of biting her thumbnail when nervous. It was fortuitous. Do you believe in predestination? Jovani questioned. I don't know what to believe anymore. A friend told me a bizarre and fantastic story about you, and it's so ridiculous that I feel ashamed to mention it for fear you would think I'm a child and a fool. She crossed her arms around her. Jovani took her arms and gently pulled them apart, and then took her hand in his. I could never think of you as a child. You are the most beautiful woman I've ever met. A little trusting but never a fool. Hannah took another sip of wine. Pulling her hand from his because of the strange coolness to his hand, she reached for and ate another small sandwich. Then she took a piece of the cake and left half on the plate in front of her. Her uneasiness had begun to show simply by her keeping her hands and mouth busy. She saw Jovani glance at her with a small, closed, amused smile. He knew what she was doing. If I'm drinking, I need to eat something. I learned that the hard way. That was why you found me in the alley, and I never got a chance to thank you for saving my life, she said hurriedly as he reached once more for her hand and leaned into her. Being near Hannah gave Jovani the feeling of ecstasy. A dizzy sort of bliss and calm he never knew or experienced before. Being near her was sweet elation. A feeling of peace where there is no hunger or pain. Where his mind isn't tormented by the past. Where his visions of the future aren't clouded by his thoughts of Sasha. He leaned into Hannah and his cold lips touched hers. Her natural instinct was to pull away, but she didn't, and he kissed her soft and slow. A warmth and sensual heat passed through Hannah, and she didn't notice the chill of his body. It was her body that gave off the warmth, and she failed to notice how cold Jovani had been before he took her into his arms. She felt a heart-rending passion swell inside of her as his kiss bore into her, jolting her. Her heart pounded in her chest, and Jovani felt that beautiful young heart near his chest, and it was as if they were one. Her warmth concealed the winter in his body. Hannah couldn't control the fierceness of her heartbeat. When she broke from his kiss, she was breathless, as if the life was being drained from her and it was transferring to Jovani. She felt as if she was now a part of him. As if they shared the same heart with that one kiss. With his mouth close to hers, he said, "Is it too soon to say I love you?" Hannah had wondered the same thing. Of course, it's too soon for her. But she welcomed the notion from him, even if she took that as just something handsome men say to get women into bed. She stood briskly. "I have a class tomorrow and I'm moving in with Gabriella." Jovani sat up. "Does that mean I will be able to see you often? I assume it will be only you and Gabriella, or will it be another roommate with you too?" "It will be only me and Gabriella. But if you're asking, will I date you? I don't know. I've heard some strange things about you." "Tell me, Hannah, what have you heard?" "That you're a vampire." Jovani raised an eyebrow. He didn't expect her to come out and say that. Surely she didn't believe the dog who told her. It couldn't be anyone but that Samsa werewolf. He's the only one who she would have come into contact with who would know such things about him, he thought. Who said those fantastic things about me? Although it was true, he wanted to tell her in his own time, but he didn't know when that would be. "If you must know, Justin said you are a vampire." She looked at him playfully, and with drinking 2 glasses of wine she didn't remember drinking, she reached for a lock of his hair and touched it, and then with her finger she trailed it from his lip down to his chest and then stopped. Her eyes met his. "Is it true?" He never answered but glanced at her with a serious gaze, and then as quickly as he narrowed his eyes, his face lit up with the most engaging smile. "Tell Justin they first said that if I'm a vampire, then he's a werewolf." Hannah shrugged her shoulders and giggled and said, "I guess it's not true. But I can't think for the life of me why 2 perfectly handsome and level-headed guys would play games like that." "Is it because he loves you too?" "Oh, he's just a friend." "And what am I?" "My dream that will never come true," she said, gazing into Jovani's eyes. They stood looking at each other. He took her in his arms, pulling her close to him, her feeling his hard, cold body, and him falling into her warmth. Falling into the innocence that all was hers. His eyes closed and her eyes closed, and they met as one with their bodies and with their kiss. Then the sound of a buzzer near pushed them apart, and a voice came over the intercom. "Mr. Nightingale. There's a young woman who says she would like to speak to you." "She's..." Jovani interrupted the security guard. "Send her up." Hannah looked confused. 1 minute he's kissing her, and another he's allowing a woman to interrupt their night. But she was just leaving, so she wasn't interrupting anything but their kiss. A kiss that left a lasting impression on her. "Please leave this way. My driver will take you where you need to go." He hurried her to the back entrance, and there stood his driver. He glanced at the driver and handed Hannah off to him with a few words. "Take care of her." That was all. His voice quiet as he handed her off to his driver. Those were the last words she remembered. All Hannah had to remember now was the heart-stopping kiss and the feeling she got from it. A feeling that if she never loved again, it would be all right, because with him, there could be no other who could give her everything of himself the way he did with that one kiss in that short time she spent with him. Gone now was the chance to wake up and see his beautiful face looking back at her. Lying in his arms. And just like she thought, that would happen now only in a dream.